Salute, salute. We back in the house, or shall I say, we're back in the villa. Yeah, I mentioned to you guys that I was going to start doing a little bit more short form content. And when I say short form, I mean as opposed to just clipping the live streams, which I know people enjoy that as well. Um, Although, the writers, you guys like the full experience, so that's why you show up to the lives and you don't mind, sitting through and listening to the entire stream. But we do clip certain specific topics from the streams, and we'll continue to do that. But I also will be putting out more of this type of original short form content, maybe between 15, 20-minute clips of me just talking about certain topics. So I think you guys are going to enjoy that as well. I'm very busy, so I haven't been doing it as much as I would have liked, but I am going to try to allocate a little bit of time to do it because as long as it's not too long, um, depending on the topic, sometimes I'll give it a little bit more time, but just in terms of making some concise points, I'm going to go ahead and start trying to do a little bit more of these type of videos. So stay tuned. When it does, when it comes to some of the more controversial stuff, as I mentioned, I will start putting those on Patreon, so that we don't bring any type of problems over here to this channel. So just stay tuned for that. But when it comes to this type of topic, I'm gonna keep it relatively light. I'm gonna give you just a quick analysis of this whole tariff situation because, as you guys may have been aware, uh, Trump was going to implement the tariffs, but then it looks like he's kind of scaling them back. And I'm going to give you guys a quick synopsis as to why he might be doing that. And so, you know how we do over here. We talk about a lot of the effery that goes on, but we also have a wide range of topics that we'll talk about throughout the live streams, throughout the proceedings of this channel. So you never know what we're gonna talk about. So that's why it's important for you guys to tune in and to stay abreast because we are very well rounded over here in terms of our conversation capabilities. But what I wanted to do, as I said briefly, is just get into this whole tariff situation. I got a couple of clips and we're going to break them down. And I'm just going to kind of give you guys some insight as to why Trump might be coming out with the tariffs, announcing certain dates, and then kind of scaling them back. Because I believe right now he's kind of kicked the can down to next month. Last time I heard it was April 2nd. But anyway, we're gonna go back a couple days ago to the lead up in terms of what he was going to do as far as implementing the tariffs, and then we're going to get into some of the reasons why he may have postponed them. So, without any further ado, let me load up this first clip, and then we're going to break it down. Let's get it.
No room left for Mexico or for Canada. They go into effect tomorrow. And China also had an additional 10, so it's 10 plus 10.
10 tariffs takes effect. It'll be 20% on China now. How high are you willing to go against China?
Well, I can't say it.
美方执意以分。
If the U.S. has ulterior motives and insists on fighting a tariff war, trade war, or any other war, China will respond in kind.
I heard that right. So, China is definitely in a position now to hit back very hard. I mean, I think some people may not realize just how much is made in China, and I mean fundamental stuff to the American economy. Even when it comes to things such as national security, defense, they are the source of a lot of the components, a lot of, I mean, you name it, they got their hands in it. So when they start talking like that, then it's definitely something you guys should take note of. What I mean by you guys, a lot of you who still live in the States, because a lot of things that you are not even aware of are imported from China. One thing that I recently found out was that a lot of chickens are imported from China, which I think is pretty interesting because the last time I checked, uh, America had enough farmland to raise its own chickens. And to be honest, I personally wouldn't trust a lot of the food products coming out of China because if you do research on a lot of the fake foods, like what China has done pretty notoriously, is export fake like rice, fake eggs, a lot of foods that you would think would be pretty difficult to mimic. They've somehow figured out a way to chemically produce fake food, and I would not be surprised at all if a lot of those, whether it be chicken or a lot of the type of products that China is exporting to America in terms of food products are probably fake. So, and from the standpoint of some of the corporations that are sourcing their materials from China, they probably don't care as much as you think they should because they're just looking at the bottom line, and what they're doing is just, getting these items very cheaply and they're marketing them up very high. So again, I'm not sure if you guys were aware of it, but a lot of your food is being imported from China. So I thought I'd mention that. But let's go.
Donald Trump has struck again. Global stock markets are in turmoil because the US president is escalating his trade war. Starting today, imports from Mexico, Canada and China will face higher taxes in the United States. Canada and China have hit back with retaliatory tariffs. Mexico too plans to counter the US. But for the wider global economy, Trump's trade war spells chaos. Although, of course, Trump does not see it in that way. He believes that he's punishing those who took advantage of America.
It's going to be very costly for people to take advantage of this country. They can't come in and steal our money and steal our jobs and take our factories and take our businesses and expect not to be punished. And they're being punished by tariffs.
Now I see Trump's perspective on that, and he has, every right to feel the way he feels. But I think he's maybe looking at it from, at least from a historic standpoint, it's kind of inaccurate because he's blaming the countries, but what you have to do is look at what actually happened. Let's say, for example, why is it that China has so much of America's manufacturing? It was because during the Clinton administration, they were doing things such as NAFTA and all these other, making China, giving it most favored trading partner status. I remember when a lot of this was going down because I was working in the financial industry at the time. And at that time, China, I mean, there were still African countries that were richer than China. I mean, I'm not talking about just raw resources because we know Africa is artificially suppressed, and Africa as a continent and specific countries are a lot richer than what they let on, but that's a whole nother subject. But when it just comes to GDP and all of that, there are African countries about 30 years ago that were actually are richer than China. But a lot of this took place during the Clinton administration when a lot of these companies were going over there outsourcing the jobs because of they wanted that cheap labor, right? So that's what happened. And back then, Donald Trump himself was a Democrat, right? I don't know if a lot of you guys remember that, but I think he seems to have misplaced anger. I'm not saying he's wrong in terms of his gripe with the situation because it is unfair. If you look at the numbers, you look at the trade imbalances. Most of America's trading partners have a trade surplus, whereas America has the trade deficit. So Trump is trying to balance it out. But whether or not tariffs are the best way to go about it, remains to be seen. But when you start looking at some of the negative implications of this, even though he's looking at it from the point of view of creating prosperity for America, there's most definitely in the short term going to be a lot of back uh, backfiring and backlash, as we can see, and that's I mean, part of the reason why he's starting to kind of push back. He's using it like a political football because he'll kind of go right to the point, and then later on in the next clip, I'm going to show you he's saying that he's going to postpone it again. But to me, that's only going to have. I mean, people are not going to take him serious if he keeps doing that, and that's the risk that he's taking. But at some point, he's going to have to pull the trigger and decide that he's going to go through with these tariffs. And what that means for you specifically is higher prices across the board. Because, like I said earlier, you'll be surprised how many products that you're using every day are made in China or specifically are not made in America. But let's get a little bit more.
If you want to sell in America, build in America. That is the message from President Donald Trump. And these are the taxes that he has imposed. Goods from Canada and Mexico face 25% tariff, 25% for Canada and Mexico. Chinese imports will be taxed at 20%. And these tariffs are already in effect. They're already in place. So for all imports from these three countries, Mexico, Canada, and China, higher taxes already apply.
And the way that works out is that even though from Trump's point of view, he's punishing the source countries like Canada, Mexico, China, and so forth, all those manufacturers are going to do is pass that on to the consumer. So when you see those tariffs, it's like a boomerang effect because, you know, you may intend for it to affect the countries in question, but what countries or companies are going to do is that they're going to pass that on to the consumer. And some of these items are necessities, and that's the problem. There used to be a time where the import market was predominantly dealing with maybe consumer electronics or things that were kind of things that you didn't necessarily need, or luxury goods, things like that. But there's been a very dangerous shift where a lot of America's key necessities or things that you need, whether it be medications. We did a broadcast, I think about a year or so ago, when I think it was like one of our first broadcasts. I was breaking down where a lot of the actual active ingredients for some of the medications that a lot of Americans are using. I think the article that we read, it was something like 40% of the active ingredients in critical medications that Americans are using are created in China, which is stunning. And I have not seen a lot of people talking about that. And I'm telling you guys right now, that is crucial. And I think that's one of the unintended consequences about this tariff stuff, because tariffs and all of that work when you have an alternative to, if these an alternative when it comes to domestic production, where you can produce some of these things at home, so that even if the other countries decide that they're going to raise prices or decide they're not going to ship, like I think Canada has decided that they're not going to carry certain American products and so forth. But then you kind of have a leg to stand on if you have some way to manufacture these items. But if you don't, and these are crucial things, such as, like I mentioned, medications, for example, that can be devastating. So I'm not surprised that Trump is starting to walk some of this stuff back. But as far as he's spending political capital doing so, and I think it's going to cost him in the long run. But let's get some more.
Now let's tell you about the goods that will be impacted. More than 40% of all US imports, that's 40%, that's roughly $1.5 trillion worth of goods These are products
Damn.
that America imports every year, involving nearly all sectors of the US economy, from retail to the restaurant business, to car manufacturing, consumer electronics, even agricultural products. Trump's tariffs are likely to hit everyone and everywhere.
Yeah, so like she said, it's across the board. But even in her little list that she just gave, she didn't mention the pharmaceuticals or the critical medications, whether it's psychotropics, as far as medications that people need because they got mental issues, diabetes medications, all of these different ailments that a lot of Americans have, they're on these medications, and as I mentioned, the active ingredients for these products are manufactured in China. It's crazy. And none of these medications work without these crucial minerals and these crucial active ingredients, which is what makes the medications effective. So I think that's something that's really going under the radar, and people need to be aware of that. So let's get it.
So, how can they be avoided? According to Donald Trump, there is only one way out: build your factories in America, commit to more investment in the US. During his address yesterday, Trump targeted both Mexico and Canada on this.
I would just say this to people in Canada or Mexico: if they're going to build car plants, the people that are doing them are much better off building here, because we have the market. We're the market where they sell the most.
Remember, Trump has tried to punish Mexico and Canada before. He did it last month, imposed these same tariffs, but then they struck last-minute deals and the crisis was averted. This time, though, there were no negotiations. President Trump simply announced the new taxes and gave no time to US allies to reason with him. So now they're responding in kind. Canada was the first to impose retaliatory tariffs.
Let's be clear. If Trump is imposing tariffs, we're ready. We are ready with $155 billion worth of tariffs, and we're ready with the first tranche of tariffs, which is $30 billion, which is already known.
A short while back, we heard from Mexico as well. Just like Canada, they plan to counter Trump tariffs with retaliatory taxes. And China is doing the same thing. Beijing has imposed countermeasures. It is targeting a range of American imports, from agriculture to food products. China plans to levy a...
And again, I think that's very ridiculous. I don't know how that happened, where America is importing so much of its food products from China, of all places. It's crazy. Because number one, China is not necessarily a friend to the U.S., and you're trusting them to, import a large part of your food. That's kind of crazy to me, especially when China is notorious for making fake food products, all kinds of stuff. You do some research on it. I'm not making this stuff up. So I think that if anything, this should be taken as an occasion for Americans to look for alternatives. So it could be a good thing in disguise, as far as um, finding other ways to supplement or replace the food imports that they have to do from China. And again, the thing that I find so weird is that historically America has had enough farming capability, or certainly enough land, to be able to feed itself. So when a country is depending on its de facto enemy for its livelihood and for its food, I mean that's kind of a vulnerable situation. So let's get a little bit more.
15% tariff on them. And it may not stop there. China could also raise these taxes or target more American imports. It has declared that it is prepared to fight back.
We are willing to resolve international concerns through dialogue and consultation with the U.S. on the basis of mutual respect, equality, and reciprocity. However, we will never accept pressure or threats, and will firmly safeguard our national sovereignty, security, and development interests.
So Trump is ramping up pressure. Mexico, Canada, and China are countering with tit-for-tat moves. There is no room for doubt. Trump's America is waging a full-blown trade war, that too on multiple fronts. Trump supporters back him, of course. They see this as a tough but necessary step.
Now, I did hear that one of the benefits of this is that I believe Honda has agreed to start manufacturing in America. I believe a couple other countries, companies as well. So I guess that's good, but you don't want to be in a situation where you're just tripping over dollars to pick up pennies. That's an old broker phrase that we used to use back in the day. And what it's meant by that is you're focusing on the small money and you're missing out on the big money. So even though you may have a couple of countries that may capitulate um, and decide that they're going to do manufacturing in America, the downside may override all of that. So let's get some more.
To create jobs. But Trump's policies will strain American households too. US tariffs are at their highest since 1943.
Damn.
They would push up household expenses significantly by as much as $2,000 a year. Stock markets are feeling the pain.
Yeah, now that's going to be very tight for people who are already struggling because the last time I checked, consumer debt is at an all-time high as far as people already just living off of credit cards, essentially. So that right there would totally wipe people out. And again, that's another reason why Trump is kind of playing, um, like that game of chicken, right, with these tariffs because he does understand what's going on. Specifically, in the next clip before we wrap up, I'm going to show you how Tesla and his right-hand man, Elon, is, I'm sure, in his ear right now talking about how this is affecting that company. So there's definitely some unintended consequences that are starting to materialize from this whole thing. But let's get some more.
Soon after Trump's announcement, America's biggest stock market indices tanked. Dow Jones and S&P fell by more than 1% and global markets are reeling. UK's FTSE 100 was trading in the red this afternoon. Same with the Asian stocks. Indian markets also took a hit. The Nifty 50 reported losses. This index tracks India's top 50 companies and it has been struggling. The Nifty has fallen for 10 straight days now, which is the longest losing streak in 3 decades. 5 out of 13 major sectors recorded losses. Experts say Trump's actions are pressuring Indian markets and Trump says he's not done yet. So brace for more turmoil because the US president plans to expand his tariffs and target more American partners.
Okay, so that was a couple of days ago, but we do know that he did reverse. So I'm going to get that clip real quick. And I just wanted you guys to see that these were the underlying reasons why he's not going to just push forward like that. He's kind of using it politically, but I think they understand the implications of this and they're not all good, right? So let me just bring you guys up to date with this particular update as far as him kind of reversing his decision. Let's get it.
Two days after tariffs hit imports from Canada and Mexico, President Trump now reversing his decision.
This as Elon Musk talks about cutbacks and firings with Republican lawmakers who have heard an earful from the public. Julie Sirkin has the latest details.
We have more oil and gas.
President Trump once again changing his stance on tariffs, announcing that most goods from Mexico and Canada will be exempt, at least for the next month. Trump shifting strategies after he spoke with Mexico's president. But the latest move didn't stop the stock market from tumbling.
I'm not even looking at the market because long term, the United States
Now we know Trump is always looking at the market. Let's go.
will be very strong.
Adding fuel to the fire with Americans already on edge over firings throughout federal agencies.
We are all going to suffer from the consequences of these actions.
We're cutting it down. We have to for the sake of our country. You can't have that kind of fat. It's bloat.
Billionaire Elon Musk, the man behind the sweeping government cuts, says there's more work to be done.
There's a lot of opportunity to improve expenditures in the government.
Huddling with Republican lawmakers on Wednesday to explain the Department of Government.
Yeah, so Elon is definitely feeling the implications of what could be happening with Tesla because, a lot of his cars are dependent on these resources that are imported from, specifically China when it comes to rare earth materials and resources from Canada. It's all over the place. So yeah, they're not going to be in a rush to to do too much because, like I said, a lot of this, the way Trump is using these tariffs at this point, is just more like a political football. And yeah, but once they start deciding they're going to go through with this, it's going to definitely be some immediate consequences. But let's get a little bit more.
Government efficiencies actions and mitigate fallout. The Veterans Affairs Secretary telling workers to expect a 15% cut in workforce. And one GOP lawmaker confronted Musk, telling me,
So there's a lot of angst going right now because people don't understand what's going on.
The Department of Education may be the next agency DOGE sets its sights on.
I told Linda, I hope you do a great job and put yourself out of a job. I want her to put herself out of a job.
But I will defend the Constitution.
And that's the other thing with DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency. What they're trying to do, I understand in principle, but they gotta go through that stuff with a fine-tooth comb because some of these agencies, you gotta know that, like with the Social Security Administration and things like that, you need certain personnel for people to get their money. And I believe Social Security had never missed a payment, and I think they were saying that it's at risk because some of the personnel is not there. So it's just stuff like that. So they're gonna have to definitely move more strategically when it comes to all of that. But I do get the fact that they want to cut and try to, as he said, trim the fat. But we're gonna see, guys. So I did just want to give you guys a quick analysis of this to see if there's anything else here.
United States.
Linda McMahon sworn in as Education Secretary just this week. The same day, she posted a message to employees on the agency's website titled, "Our Department's Final Mission." It says in part, "This is our opportunity to perform one final, unforgettable public service to future generations of students." Several news outlets include...
Okay, so yeah, so they're just, referring to doing the other cuts and stuff. So yeah, it's going to be very interesting. I think this is going to be an interesting year, guys. So I will keep you posted. We're going to be talking about, obviously various subjects during the live streams and all of that. But as I mentioned, I am going to try to, hit you guys with a few of these short form clips where, under 30 minutes. So that's cool. So we're going to be wrapping it up right now. But at any rate, thank you guys for tuning in, and salute. And for everybody who tunes in to the stream, I'll see you then. I think I got another video we're going to drop today. But other than that, I will see you guys later. I'm out.